Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Dish on Dogs podcast. I'm your host today, Jackie Bondanza. And I am joined by our very own new Chief Operating Officer of Hounds Town, Inc., Rob Flanagan. Welcome to the show, Rob.
This is very, very exciting. Thank you for having me.
You're a star now. This will launch your career, undoubtedly. Today, we're going to be talking about Rob's role in Hounds Town, kind of what you're going to be doing, what you're going to be bringing to the table, your background, give everybody a little bit of an idea of where we're going. Kind of franchising wise and just system growth wise over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah.
So
we'll start there. So, first, I'm just really excited to be part of this brand. I've been in franchising close to 20 years now. And for whatever reason, my niche has always been founder-led brands. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of emerging brands, sometimes they have private equity, venture capital dollars. But there's just something really magical about working with founder-led brands.
Yep.
And it's really because the first brand I came up with, Dot Popcorn, was founder-led. I was their first hire back in 2002, 2003. And we grew that brand to about 118 locations. And I worked side by side with the founders. And what I loved about it is just that magic that founders have with their baby.
The neurotic magic.
I wouldn't say that. But it's that je ne sais quoi, that little thing that started with that first location.
Yeah.
And the founders are envisioning growing that to more locations. And really what my job is to help systemize that vision, honor the vision, the sacred cows, but also build the systems that you need to scale the company. Mm-hmm. So I came up through Dot Popcorn. What I'm really proud about is I started at the bottom. With that concept, I started out as an entry-level employee for minimum wage when I was in grad school.
So you were making popcorn?
I was making popcorn. Okay. Yes. I can make a mean batch of kettle corn, actually, to this day. Nice. And I started out in franchising as a field rep. So I went out, I opened stores, kind of supported franchisees that way, grew into director of operations, and then the concept sold to Dippin' Dots, and then I ended up running the brand underneath the Dippin' Dots umbrella.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it sold to Dippin' Dots.
Yeah, sold to Dippin' Dots in 2014.
Okay.
If I'm doing the numbers right. And I was with Dot Popcorn for about 13 years, for quite a while. Started doing some side consulting with probably about 10 to 12 different brands. Then most recently was with a concept called Wagon Wash, which was a pet retail concept. Did self-wash, grooming, pet food, pet retail. Had an in-house bakery, which was fun. And then most recently joined with you guys.
Yeah, great. And yeah, we have been one of those 12 or 13 brands that you've kind of consulted for and with over the past couple years. And that's how I've gotten to know you and your work and your work ethic and your knowledge really about franchising and the pet care space and emerging brands, which is such a unique combination. And, the past 7 years or so, we've been franchising here at Hounds Town. We always talk about we, meaning Mike and I, the other founder, we're very knowledgeable about our business model, right? Like we're green and blue all the way. We know how to operate a Hounds Town business. What we backed into was the space of franchising.
Yeah.
Right. So we, over the years, have had to strategize bringing on people that are more knowledgeable in franchising than we are to help us marry those two things. And I think the marriage is what makes a great franchise system tremendous, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's I talk about franchising it's a growth strategy for founder-led concepts. Founder, you could have gone towards private equity. You could have gone to all your friends and family. You made the joke that your friends and family don't have.
Yeah, they don't have any money.
They don't have any money. And what's really powerful about franchising is that you can grow your brand as founders But it also gives an opportunity for franchisees to achieve financial independence.
Yep.
And you're helping individuals live that dream of running their own business. And so there's a marriage there. There's a lot of just partnerships and marriage throughout the whole relationship.
Yep.
But to your point, when you're running, 1 to 3 locations, but now you're opening up and you have stores throughout the country, there's a whole different level of scale that's needed.
Yep.
And on top of that, you're partnering with franchisees. And I like to say you've met one franchisee, you've met one franchisee. Everyone is different.
Yep.
And at the core of franchising is finding that balance between the localization, which franchisees, of course, are really driven towards, but also the standardization, because you can't scale if things aren't standardized.
Yes, for sure.
And how you navigate the localization, standardization with the individuals is unique. And and that's where, people who've been in franchising come into play.
For sure. And I think we've definitely not struggled with that, but we've been so focused on just getting our franchisees up and running and getting them trained and getting them to implement the business model in their market. Then now we go back and we're like, okay, now we have 50 something franchisees. We're about to open 100 stores.
Yeah.
We really need to, let's look at what's the next level for all of this, right?
Yes.
Let's not look at just what's going to happen tomorrow or next month. Let's look at what's going to happen over the next 5 years.
Correct.
And I think that's an obligation that we have to our franchisees, of course. And that's why we kind of asked you to come on board, right? I woke up one morning and texted Rob and said, I'm about to recruit you. So, think about it. And so it was just kind of like, as a business owner, I think, and I guess maybe as a founder, when it's just time to expand the team, when is it time to offer a new service? When is it time to improve or change training? And this was just one of those moments where I was like, Rob's going to help us take it to the next level. So that's kind of what your job is going to be when you're here.
Yeah. I mean, Hounds Town, for the emerging brand space, and I don't want to get too technical and nerdy on franchising. But the way I've always structured, you're in phase 2 of the emerging space. Phase 1 is kind of your first 1 to 5 franchise locations. And then phase 2 is kind of 5 to 20. And so you're right at the end of getting those 20. And those first, 15 to 20 franchisees are contacting you and Mike all the time. And I remember it at Dot Popcorn, like the Rob Israel was the one doing all the real estate for every franchisee.
Yep.
But at a certain point, you can't do it that often. And that's where the brand kind of shifts, so that the prospects that are coming in, the founders are still a huge part of the brand and the vision and where it's going. But people are also buying in and investing in the brand because of the systems and the people that the founders are surrounding it by. And I thought it was really powerful. We're at training today, but when the franchisees said they don't know me yet, it was day 5, so they don't trust me yet, but they trust you. And they trust that you're making the right hires and making the right decisions for the brand. And I thought that was a huge compliment and really intuitive.
Better live up to it.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, but joking aside, that
Yeah.
I see that as like a sacred, and I use that word on purpose. It's very, very sacred and special, is that trust between the franchisee and the franchisor. Like I said before, it's a growth strategy, and franchisees are investing partners. We've chosen them to invest in the brand, and they've chosen us to invest in. And there's a partnership there, and it's only based on trust. And it takes time to build that up. But a brand can lose it in 1 second. You can lose the trust. So it is very, very special.
Yeah, no, that is true. And I think over the years, one of the things that Mike and I enjoy the most about this is choosing franchise partners who are going to be our kind of investors and our business partners, and watching them take something that Mike invented in his head one day, and 20 years later, they are, uber successful. And they send me text messages and emails and say, I can't believe I have 50 dogs today. And, whatever, I made all my utility payments, I'm cash flow positive and I didn't think I was going to be there right now. Those are the moments that we work so incredibly hard for, right? And it's always just like such a proud moment to be able to hear a franchisee or see a franchisee be that happy and that kind of successful. And to see that they can do it, because this is really a different experience than coming from corporate America, working in a corporate job. Running your own business and being kind of the master of your own destiny there's a lot of responsibility to that.
Yeah. And a lot of fear.
A lot of fear
comes into it. And there's a transition from, if you have been part of corporate America, I mean, you could delegate and you have different departments, doing a lot of, you have HR department, a finance department, and you're in charge of a lane. But when you're running your own business, you're wearing 3 hats.
Yep. There's no HR department.
There's no HR. You're the salesperson.
Yep.
You're the manager. You're managing your team and your systems. And you're, in the very beginning, you're definitely one of the worker bees.
Yep.
Like, you're working a scheduled shift in the store and somebody calls out sick, you're coming in.
Yep.
And understanding how to kind of understand those hats, and that's kind of the first 6 months to a year after a store first opens. But once you see, the franchisees learned it, they're running the business, they start working on the business versus working in the business.
Yep.
That's where the magic really comes into play. And that's one of the reasons that drew me to Hounds Town, was just that the franchisees that are currently opened and speaking with all of them, or most of them, just how happy they are.
Yeah.
And if you've been in franchising, you know the little tricks, like, oh, you only sent me to these 3 franchisees? Like, what about these other ones?
Right.
But everyone I spoke to was like, no, I would make this decision again.
Mm-hmm.
And when I visit stores, I like to ask franchisees a couple questions. One of them is, would you make this same decision again? Mm-hmm. Would you recommend this to a friend? Do you trust me? And what can we do better? Mm-hmm. And everyone I spoke to said, yes, we would definitely recommend this to a friend, and I would definitely make this decision again. And in franchising, it's rare to have all the open stores, saying that in such a positive way, and that's what also attracted me to the brand.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. We work really, really hard at those relationships. And I think in the beginning, while it's definitely not scalable to have 100 people texting you or emailing you, or, having those core first 15 to 20 people, having that personal business relationship with them. And, same thing for us. If something happens at their store, they have to be able to call me at 9:00 at night, especially in the beginning. And we've been through that with all of them and just helped them get through the challenges that they've faced in their business, COVID, negative customer service reviews, different things that have just been, that moment happens and then the fear comes in, right? And it's like, what am I going to do? And then they at least know that they can call me. They can call Mike. They can call one of our staff. And I think that that's huge. That's why people invest in franchising, right?
You're going through, they bought 15 years of Mike's and yours mistakes.
Right.
And it's kind of a shift in the perspective is, for a franchisee, like, what would this have taken if you did this completely from scratch? And it's not just the systems and the training, it's the branding, it's the marketing plans, the operational plans, the chart of accounts, how do you build out the store? All those things are part of the give and take in the relationship. So
and there's a lot to what we do.
Yeah.
It's
I'm definitely discering that.
Yeah, well, you've been here for about 6 hours of training.
6 hours of training.
You've been subjected to a lot of dog slobber, and Mike's instruction of don't look, talk, or touch the dogs while they're in their group. That's our philosophy. So and I think it's our business model is very simple. Our day-to-day operations are very simple, but that's because behind the scenes we have worked extremely hard to build the model so that it can be simple.
Correct.
And it can be operated, fairly easily. But there are a lot of nuances to what we do, especially when it comes to the dog management. Obviously, that's kind of our secret sauce, right?
Yes.
And our main differentiators that we actually have knowledge about dogs. And we spend a tremendous amount of time in training, teaching our franchisees and their employees how to implement that in their stores.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And even just in the first 6 hours here and just getting introduced to the approach that Hounds Town uses for grouping dogs, the safety of the packs. But it's really well thought through. And I like to say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And so it can maybe seem overwhelming, but what Mike's doing is breaking it down step by step by step. And everything kind of just builds on itself. So, if you just looked at the agenda or something or the training, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But when you just take it bite by bite,
right,
it's all very easy to pick up on.
Yep. I mean, and that's what we try to do. We do over 130 hours of training or so. For every franchisee before they open, that's broken down into different stages. And I know one of the things you suggested, actually, even before you came on, because I caught you right when the FDD was
that's right,
getting
timing.
Released. So I asked you for your suggestions, and one of your suggestions was to add in a couple of days of training where franchisees actually go to a store and they work in the store.
Correct. Right? So when you have, and Hounds Town is there now. When you have some stores that have been open for a couple of years, they can become a training center.
Yeah.
And then so franchisees, depending on where they're based out of, can go to that training center for X amount of days before they open. Because the hardest part with training is you're trying to get them trained, not right before they open, but not so far in the past of when they open that a franchisee forgets everything. And it's impossible to completely nail that because permitting and things delay things. But when you can kind of do a foundational training like we're doing here, and then just do hands-on in the store training at a training location close by, within 3 to 4 weeks before they open, then the franchisees open better, faster, stronger, and quicker.
Yep. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we're going to implement. We'll see how that goes.
If it goes horribly,
You'll be in charge.
It was not my idea. It was Cooper's idea. And,
it was marketing's idea.
That's right. That was
marketing crew. All right, good. So we've been talking about some new programs and structures and even revenue streams that we want to roll out over the next, just say 12 to 18 months or so.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what do those things look like? Like what's our next year looking like?
Yeah. So I'll start a little high level and then I'll go from there. First and foremost, what I think is helpful for a brand to put in is the infrastructure to how they do business.
Yeah.
So when you're first starting out, it's all hands on deck and everybody's kind of working on different things. I like to use something called Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And it's something for the home office to put in that helps them prioritize and focus. Another one I like to say, when everything's an emergency or everything's a priority, nothing's a priority.
Yep.
And so it's really kind of creating a system so that when we have an idea or a project, we're able to just focus on the key things that we want to focus on. The first go around at that will be done kind of internally, but moving forward, we want to incorporate the franchisees into that process. So I like to work with the franchisees first before working with the home office on the strategy, either for the year or 2 year or 3 year. Because at the end of the day, franchisees are in their stores and the closest to the day to day.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had what I thought was a brilliant idea on paper.
Right.
And then I bring it to the franchisees and they give me a whole lot of really good reasons why it's not a good idea.
Right.
So I've learned the hard way that it's better to go start with the franchisees, get their ideas. What I like to do with that is use the annual meeting, the advisory council, all the franchisees, everybody gets together in the room. Town headquarters, we're out. We're not in the room.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's scary.
That sounds kind of scary.
And essentially people, it's an open forum and people say, hey, this idea. And then after the annual meeting, a survey goes out and people rank them. And we take those ideas and we incorporate them into our ideas. Typically 90% of the ideas coming from the franchisees are things we already know.
Okay.
And then there's kind of a little bit of back and forth on just kind of solidifying what that is. And then we put the plan together and then we're very transparent with it and provide updates to the franchisees either on a monthly or quarterly basis on what those things are. just being here for 5 days, what I see most of the focus for myself right now is really focusing on real estate and construction.
Yeah.
Primarily because there are a lot of stores in that process. Secondarily, the economy is in a funky place right now.
Yes.
And different sectors are opening up really, really quick, and other sectors are opening up slow. And that's kind of creating this backlog as those things don't necessarily always intersect.
Yeah.
So creating a little bit tighter systems and support for real estate and construction, where I'll be working more directly with the franchisee and the different vendors that we're utilizing to help guide that process. Secondarily to that is really taking a look at training. There's a great foundation in place, but being able to take the training materials and make them easier to find, easier to access, most importantly, make them available to their team members so that they have the tools to help train the staff that they're hiring. And then last, and again, this is only on day 5, so I'm not sure how much I've totally committed myself to, but putting together an intranet, and it looks like it's going to be a system called FranConnect. This will incorporate the information from Franchise Blast, but also create a one place where franchisee can go to get the learning materials and all the access to the support that they need. It's going to take a couple months to build out that system, but we will take that system, plug it into the EOS platform of project management, and be very transparent with franchisees about where we are in that and the training on how to use it. But essentially, they'll be able to go to one place. They're going to see all their data from the Franchise Blast. But if they need their franchise agreement, they need to access training materials, they'll have a learning management system where they can bring in a new hire and say, oh, you got to watch these training videos, take this quiz, and follow up on these things. And so that's kind of the first, I'll have all that done within 6 days.
Okay. All right. You're on tape saying it. So. No, that's great. I think, that's obviously one of the reasons why we wanted to bring an experienced operator on board, is because we spend so much time just focusing on growth and supporting all of the franchisees we have now, that we need someone to help just kind of, just like you said, create better scaffolding so that franchisees aren't spending 20 minutes looking for something on a Google Drive when it could be better systemized, right? So our whole end goal is to help people be more successful in their stores, to get people open quicker, to get them making more money, to get their profit margins as high as possible.
You nailed it. It's I think every brand's different. And in franchising, there's thousands and thousands of brands. But for Hounds Town specifically, there's this very heartfelt aspect to the brand. I think whenever you're working with dogs, there's a heart to there, but there's also a business. Right. And it's important to have those married. The word marriage is coming up again. and it's looking at that return on investment. Yep. So how much money did it cost you to get your store open and running, and how long does it take? We want that to be as short as possible. Exactly. And these systems should go a long way towards helping people achieve that goal sooner. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So that's what I guess we'll be working on over the next, I don't know, 12 months, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll be putting those together. And I think the other part that's really exciting is as we kind of lay out that plan, what are the other support positions that we need to look at hiring?
So that was going to be my next kind of question. I know we have to wrap it up soon, but you're going to lead the development of basically our operations team over the next couple of years, building that out and building out a support team for stores that get open. So we've got a lot in the pipeline. I do get a lot of questions from prospects that say, it's great that you guys are selling so many territories, but how do you plan to support us all? And so this is, Rob's going to do it. Just call Rob.
You just call me. But I think a part of where that came from is, I mentioned I came up as a field rep, and Dot Popcorn was on a very similar growth cycle that this was. And we did get the support in. But I remember at one point I had, just as a field rep, I had so many franchisees, and I'm at a store opening, but I'm trying to support the franchisee that had opened 6 months ago. Yeah. And there's only so many hours in the day.
Exactly. Right.
So it's a rule of thumb. it's not black and white, but definitely I like to call them guide dogs. And it's somebody that a franchisee is working with through what I call cradle to success, from the moment you've signed your agreement to the end of the contract. And that guide dog is really with them through every step of the process.
Yep.
But that guide dog doesn't have 40 or 50 franchisees. They have maybe 20, maybe 25.
Right.
To make sure that they can give as much support as possible.
Yeah.
I see somebody coming in that's really just focused on training. So that's with store openings and creating more robust training materials for franchisees during the opening process and beyond. Different directors of operations. I mean, those are going to be a lot of growth within this team over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and the last question I always get, from prospects is how are you gonna maintain the culture you have now? Because it's super important to our franchisees, right? We get a lot of prospects from our competitors, and they come to us because they feel that the competitors are super kind of corporate and stuffy and sales focused. So they like the family kind of friendly atmosphere and the culture that we foster here, which is very purposeful.
Yep.
So I think, my answer is always we're going to bring on other people who have that same level of commitment to that philosophy and culture and have the same passion. And I think you've obviously fit that into that. Our marketing team fits into that. Everyone that works for us, this is not a 9-to-5 job. This is an investment in something bigger. And that's kind of what we plan to continue to build.
Yeah. I mean, what you're speaking to is how do you scale culture?
Exactly.
And that's part of the EOS platform, because that's a huge part of it. But what I found in my experience is not planning out the hires you're making, that the company is making.
Okay.
So if it's like all of a sudden, we need to hire this position, and you do it in 2 weeks, you're more than likely going to make a hire that doesn't live the values as strongly. But if in 6 months you're going to need to make that hire, and you're planning for 6 months, and you're interviewing during that whole period, which seems crazy, but then you're really, really making sure that you're bringing in those right people. And so everybody is all aligned to our values and the direction we're going in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but it'll be good.
We do.
We can do it.
But purposeful work that makes a difference,
doesn't feel like work.
It doesn't feel like work, but it also you're not just punching a clock.
Exactly. Right.
You're helping people achieve something larger than themselves, and it's an honor to be part of something like that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks for watching another exciting episode of the Dish on Dogs podcast. You can catch us every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time right here on Facebook Live. You can also watch us on YouTube on the Dish on Dogs podcast. If you're a listener, you can catch us on iTunes, Spotify, and all your other podcast platforms. For more information, click the link in the description. We'll see everybody next time.